Hey everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Let me get this a little squared here. There we go. So here I am to annoy all the people that don't like that I record in my car. I'm comfy in my car. I like the lack of reverberation. So I had a conversation the other day with my dad, and he's a Fox News watcher, but he has been for like 20, 30 years. But something's changed over the last 6 months to a year. He's gone from, just watching the news and harumphing at the stuff he disagrees with to just being an absolute mouthpiece for whatever slogans he hears. I don't know. I don't watch it, so I don't know if they've ramped up the propaganda. I did hear a clip the other day that my dad quoted before I even heard the news quote it, or the news say it. The news. And it's a temporary something for long-term payoff. Temporary pain for long-term gain. That's it. I heard that over and over, or I heard my dad say that, and I know my dad. I've known him. I'm 40 next month. I've known him my whole life, and that's not how he speaks. Those aren't the words and the thought process he uses. And that's the scary part. These people that they watch this stuff, they go then to spread it, and it's not their own thoughts. It's not filtered by their intellect whatsoever. And that brings me to another point, which is the coronavirus. So do you remember anybody that criticized that whole fiasco got called a science denier? Well, I would argue that there's a great chasm between denying science and denying that science is being used or appropriately applied. But you know what happens is definitions change. Short term, for instance. Short term. What does that mean? I mean, compared to 50 years, 20 years is short term, isn't it? So, I don't know, man. It's really sad to watch my parents get all brainwashed. My mom's always been brainwashed. She believes anything that she sees on TV. And then what's really tragic is I can use my dad's historical logic against him. And again, not against him, but against the points that he's trying to make, and say, like, here's an example. On one hand, he's really pissed that TSA agents aren't getting paid. But on the other hand, he knows that TSA is a giant waste of money and a constitutional violation. He knows that. And I said that to him. And I said, you know that, Dad. What's going on here? And he said, well, I don't necessarily. Man. He knows it, though. I've had those conversations with him. And he's not like, he's old, but he's still very sharp. At least in like every other aspect. But this, you put some idiot on TV and put makeup on him and make his head fill up a screen, and anybody will believe anything that comes out of his mouth, as long as it's accompanied by a slowly scrolling script that says alert, alert, alert in red text, red and white and blue. Man, you got to fill you with that patriotism while they fill you with fear. it's just it's not sustainable, because the only people believing this are those who are old enough to not be able to keep power much longer. And people younger than them, people like myself, man, I and many others see right through this facade. It's ironic because, his generation was the one that should have learned it from their music, and yet I heard their music and I learned the lessons that were trying to be taught. It's really sad, man. On the other hand, my army friend, I don't know if I've said this before in a video, but she said, and I trust her, that she hasn't heard anything about this war other than what they've said on mainstream news. So take that to mean what you choose. But don't forget that everything we see put out by them on a screen is in some way a lie, right? It always has been, and you gotta really just have I don't understand how people can acknowledge a history full of lies and then say, but this person that I voted for, they're the truthful one. That's the person that's going to save me. You know how I know? I voted for him. Well, you voted for Bush too, right? Like, what's the insanity? What's the insanity that takes? And who put that virus in them? And why am I immune? I have noticed, incidentally, that it's most of the people that got the vaccine that are really susceptible to the disease of propaganda. And that could be just, correlation by way of the fact that those who were susceptible to propaganda got the vaccine. That's probably what it is. But it is an interesting data point. Now, another thing to remember is that when you're surrounded by stupid people, those stupid people try to convince smart people that smart people are stupid. Okay? And they do so by using slogans, because they can't use arguments, so they use slogans. And those slogans are scripted for them. Go back to the short-term pain for long-term gain. Why do I need this short-term pain? How is it going to cause anything to gain? They don't answer those questions because they believe, and the thought dam is closed at that point. It's a very interesting phenomenon, because my dad could think for hours about other stuff, but when it comes to that, he stops. Once you get a slogan, man, it's easy that's why lyrics in music are so powerful. To wrap it around to my last point about their music, it's because there's patterns to them. They rhyme. There's a musical pitch, melodic pattern. That was dumb. And so the brain, that's why you get songs stuck in your head. Short-term pain, long-term gain. Short-term pain, long-term gain. Short-term pain, long-term gain. Short-term pain for some long-term gain. That's what they're doing, man. They're putting that rhythm into you. And it's easy for me to see. It's easy. And I don't know why. I guess because when you've been just swimming in it for decades and decades, that becomes the norm. And that which becomes the norm, I mean, you can't argue against, right? So, I can. The answer to all of this is to turn off the screens. It is to go outside. It is to turn the outside into a giant farm and farmer's market. And to start having block parties again. That's the answer. I mean, they can't touch anything like that. You understand that provides such an immense power that any propaganda that they put out is, I mean, you're just impervious to it. It doesn't work, because that goes back to why people had to stand 6 feet apart during the Rona virus bullshit. It's because they didn't want you interacting with each other's energetic signature. It's an electromagnetic signature that's, measurable. That's kind of what EKG. That's what EKGs test. In a way, but you are an electromagnetic being, and it goes out about 3 feet. And so when you're 6 feet away from somebody, you're just starting to, get into that bubble like that. But they had to keep everybody far enough apart that they could speak directly to them. And they spoke directly to them, and they still do, because people stayed apart. People never went back together after that. Not in the same way. It's really awful to watch. It's awful. It's awful to watch, isn't it? So, 12 minutes in. I hope you all have a wonderful day.